There you are, my apprentice. Shall we commence the lesson?
People have risked everything for knowledge. But why? Why do they step into danger, chase forbidden truths, and sacrifice their bodies, their names, even their humanity, all in the name of discovery? Perhaps it's curiosity, perhaps it's ambition, or perhaps it's something far more dangerous. History is full of people who gambled everything on knowledge. Alchemists would poison themselves in search of immortality, explorers would get lost at sea in search of new lands. Some scientists made discoveries that changed the world, but at what cost? They ended up paying with their lives. Knowledge promises light, but often it burns the ones who reach for it. In the lands between, knowledge is power, and sorcery takes on one of its most dangerous forms. Because of this, very few pursued its depths with more brilliance or more obsession than the sorceress Sellen. To Sellen, knowledge was not just a tool. It was salvation and revelation, a current that flowed beneath the world. It was unstoppable, untouchable, but despite that, she would risk everything to get a hold of it. Once, she was a promising mage at the Academy of Raya Lucaria. She was gifted, ambitious, and relentless in her studies, but Sellen's hunger for truth went beyond what her peers, and even her masters, would allow. Sellen is by far one of my favorite characters in Elden Ring, so I'm going to be working on this drawing of her today while I share my thoughts on her. While others obeyed the strict laws of the Academy, she searched for the forbidden, the Primeval Current, sorceries that were older, wilder, and more dangerous than anything the Academy would sanction. But what exactly is the Primeval Current? It's not just stronger magic, not just another school of sorcery, it is the root, the oldest, rawest form of glintstone sorcery. Magic that draws directly from the stars, from the very flow of the cosmos itself. To study it is to tamper with the source of reality and to gaze into forces no mortal mind was meant to hold. The Academy feared it, and perhaps rightly so. They declared it forbidden, yet its masters, Azure and Lestat, stood as the most brilliant sorcerers of their age. Their discoveries shaped everything Raya Lucaria became, and yet, where did they end? Their minds shattered, their bodies warped into unrecognizable vessels, and they became monuments. The Academy saw this and recoiled. To them, the Primeval Current was not just a path forward, it was a curse. But to Sellen, it was the truth. If Azure and Lestat were broken by what they found, then perhaps they simply hadn't gone far enough. Perhaps, she thought, she could succeed where they failed. But at the end of the day, the Primeval Current was forbidden for a reason. Its power consumed those who sought it and isolated them from the rest of the world. Yet Sellen defied her order, her teachers, her peers. She believed that the truth mattered more than the rules, more than safety, perhaps more than life itself. Her pursuit branded her a heretic. She was then cast out from Raya Lucaria, stripped of her place, and hunted by her own kind. Amongst those who pursued her was witch hunter Jaren, a man infamous across the lands between for his merciless crusade against rogue sorcerers. To the Academy, he was a weapon, a necessary blade to cut down heretics. To Sellen, he was the embodiment of the fate that awaited all who sought the Primeval Current. Not only exile, but death at the hands of those too afraid to understand. His shadow loomed over her every step, a reminder that brilliance made her both extraordinary and marked her as a target. But she did not relent. Knowledge mattered more than acceptance, more than belonging, and again, more than safety. She became a fugitive scholar while clinging to fragments of primeval wisdom. She kept searching for teachers that were long gone, while also hiding from enemies that she made along the way. But also, why such harsh punishments? I mean, Raya Lucaria wasn't just a school, I suppose. It was a fortress of order. Sorcery was tightly controlled, portioned out like rations. And to study the Primeval Current was to defy that order, to embrace chaos. The Academy could not allow it. Better to exile a genius than to risk unraveling their authority. And so Sellen's brilliance was not celebrated, but buried. I always found it rather interesting that there was a portrait of her at Raya Lucaria. And you can see that portrait right next to that of Renala's. I wondered if maybe they kept these portraits here to warn people, to show that even in greatness, there's a risk of going too far. She was erased from her home, not from history, for her obsession would not allow her to disappear quietly. And that's when we, the Tarnished, find her. Despite this, she does not treat us as an outcast should. In a world where it seems as though everyone and everything is trying to kill us, she greets us as kindred spirit, someone willing to risk everything for power and discovery. In fact, she offers guidance, sorcery, and even her trust. We might not realize it at first, but beneath it all still lies her unshakable conviction that only through forbidden study can true brilliance be found. But what makes Sellen fascinating is that tension. Is she truly our mentor? Or are we simply a means to her end? She sees in us a successor, perhaps even a vessel for her unfinished work. And yet, she is also warm in her own way, almost maternal, charming in her mystery, unafraid to welcome us when so many others see only an enemy. She straddles the line between manipulator and teacher, which makes her one of the most human characters in all of Elden Ring. She is flawed, but she believes. But knowledge always demands its price. Sellen's pursuit mirrors that of the primeval sorceress she admired, albeit with our help. But in the end, it consumed her. The body, no, the human form, cannot withstand such truths unscathed. It was never meant to. Her form twists, her brilliance warps into something monstrous, and then, the sorceress who once sought the beauty of the cosmos becomes something unrecognizable. A tragic monument to her own ambition, barely able to utter a word. Though if you were to ask someone like Jaren, her fate is not a tragedy, it is justice. The natural end of a heretic who dared to defy the laws of sorcery. Where we may see brilliance undone, he sees madness contained. Perhaps in his eyes, hunting Sellen was an act of mercy for the world that she might have endangered. In this, the witch hunter becomes her mirror, one who devotes his life to eradicating forbidden knowledge, just as she devotes hers to pursuing it. Both were unyielding, both convinced they were right, and both destined to clash. Elden Ring is a world littered with the corpses of ambition, where every path forward demands a sacrifice. And here, Sellen joins a lineage of tragic seekers in the lands between. Azure, Lasat, Renala in her grief, Ranni in her defiance, even Godwyn in his corruption. All of them are bound by the same thread. The pursuit of something forbidden, something too vast for the mortal hands to hold. I do wonder though, why does Sellen turn into one of those graven masses? From what I can understand, she took whatever was left of the bodies of Master Lasat and Master Azure and somehow combined with them to create that graven mass that we see. And in-game, when you turn it around, you can see her face on it. So that is a unique model different from the other graven masses that we meet. When we look at the graven mass talisman, it does say something about the act of collecting sorcerers to fashion them into the seeds of stars, and how that's another path to scientific inquiry. So maybe that's what she was doing. Maybe she was just collecting them, knowing that they would become this mass. Maybe by combining into this singular entity, she could gain their knowledge. I find this to be really interesting because Masters Lasat and Azure, neither of them became graven masses. Their story is a little different. According to the Stars of Ruin, when Lasat glimpsed into the Primeval Current, he beheld the final moments of a great star cluster, and upon seeing it, he too was broken. The description for Comet Azure reads, "When Azure glimpsed into the Primeval Current, he saw darkness. He was left both bewitched and fearful of the abyss." So we know that they both factually stared into the Primeval Current, and we know that at some point, possibly after that, glintstones began to corrode their bodies, eventually leaving them both non-responsive. It is unclear to me when they began to crystallize. However, I do not think that it was immediate. I think that it happened slowly over time. The description for Azur's glintstone crown says, "This crown replaced Azur's brain and skull altogether, and now, removed from his body, it is all but dead." And we can see the same description for Lucette's glintstone crown. So that's Azur and Lucette. However, as far as I'm aware, we don't get any special spell from Sellen once she becomes this graven mass. In fact, I don't think we even get any confirmation that she looked into the Primeval Current the way that the other two sorcerers did. She also doesn't have glintstones growing out of her the way that they did. Something happens to her, and then she just becomes this mass, and the bodies of Azur and Lucette disappear. Sellen's fate is not unique, but it is one of the most personal, because she walked it alongside us. Sellen is not a villain, and despite my love for her, she's not simply a victim either. She's a scholar who believed too fiercely and who sought too deeply. In her, we see the perils of dangerous knowledge. It promises truth and promises power, but it asks for everything, and unfortunately, she was all too willing to give it all up. In the end, Sellen's story is a reminder. The pursuit of forbidden knowledge can illuminate the world, but it can also consume the seeker. Perhaps for her that was a price worth paying. And so I just have to ask, was she wrong? The world advances because of people who dare to cross lines. Every discovery, every revolution begins because someone was willing to pay the price that no one else would. Perhaps Sellen's fate isn't just a tragedy. Perhaps it's the inevitable consequence of chasing what others feared to touch. I originally went into it knowing how it would end and vowed not to let it happen to her. But as the journey wore on, I realized perhaps the truest way to honor her was not to pull her back, but to walk beside her, to help her reach what she sought, even if it meant losing her. In fact, this journey is reflected with other characters. In the end, we end up losing so many of our friends, so many of our allies on our journey across the lands between. But I just keep asking myself, was it worth it? Ignorance is bliss, or, so they say. Which means knowledge, by extension, is dangerous. It always asks for something in return, and some pay with time, some pay with blood, and some, like Sellen, give up everything. The question isn't why she risked it all. The real question is, if you were given the same chance, would you? For me, I'm not so sure. I would have done anything for Sellen. In fact, if I had to marry anyone in the lands between, it would be her. Well, her or... Well, anyway, this video is about Sellen. I loved her story, her personality, even fighting by her side, a thrilling and unexpected experience. She was charming, mysterious, and unforgettable. And despite me being mostly a strength build, to this day I keep raising my intelligence. In her honor, of course. There's so much more I could say about Sellen and the impact that she had on me as a player, but I wanted to keep this video short. I would love to hear your experience with her and what you thought about her, her story, and the impact she had on you, if any. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye!